Hello, my name is Marcelo and I want to tell you my story how I came about to learn English. So in Brazil, we learn English in high school, but I was never able to hold a conversation in English. So after my graduation in university and also my master's degree, I decided that I wanted to learn English very well. So I went to United States and I stayed there 4 years instead of one that I initially planned. So I went there and took ESL classes, and then after that I took the TOEFL test. I get to the university again, and then did a second master's in the United States. And I have struggled to learn English, but I remember that for me to learn English was a very important thing because it opens so many doors in my future life that I wanted to tell you about some of them. Okay, let me tell you something here about vocabulary. So when I was learning English, I always thought that I needed to know every word in English. I needed to know all of them to speak good English. But that wasn't true until somebody told me that do you actually know every word in your native language, which is in Portuguese? So I reflect back and saw that I didn't know all the words that we have in my native language. For example, I am not a mechanic, okay, but I know the basics, some of the tools, names of the tools, and how to ask for help if I need it. But for example, this is in my native language. This is called chave canhão, and I don't know what it is a chave canhão because I'm not a mechanic. This is not a specific of my area in or my field. I don't even know what it is chave torques. It is in Portuguese, my native language, but I don't even know that. So I needed to go to the internet to find out that chave canhão it is this one here, and the chave torques it is this one. I have seen those keys before, like chaves, but I never knew their names before until now because I have to look it to see what it is. So when somebody actually told me that I don't need to know every word in that other language, it makes me easy to learn that language. So English becomes much easier for that aspect for me. Let's go to the other aspect. I want to talk to you about the accent. So I always wanted to talk in English in the way people could understand me, but it's very hard to get rid of the accent. So there are people who speaks without accent. How this is possible? So let me tell you some few tips that helps you to lose the accent. And one very good tip it is this: learning how to sing in that language that you wanted to learn. When I was living in the United States, my wife was singing all the time. And after a few years there, so when she opened her mouth to speak, nobody could notice if she was a foreigner or if she was native of that country because her English was very good without accent. But as for me, when I opened my mouth, people readily noticed that I'm a foreigner because I had a strong accent. So one thing that helps you to lose the accent it is to sing. Why this is happening? Think about it. When you're singing, you're actually train your vocal tract to pronounce that sound. So the more you pronounce it, the more familiar you become with that sound. So we're kind of losing the accent. So why do we have accent? We have accent because our native language has different sound than the language that you wanted to learn. So for us, it's kind of hard to pronounce that sound. But the more we practice, the better we become at it. So singing is a very good tool to help you lose the accent. But I noticed when I start living in the United States, before that, every English sound the same for me. I couldn't understand. But as soon as I got to live there, I started to notice English, different accent from different regions of the country. For example, people in the countryside, people from the city, they have a little different accent. And I noticed this is happening in my own country. So usually big countries have a different accent from one region to the other. So let me talk about now what are the advantages of learning a second language. So I was doing this TESOL certificate and I find it very interesting to understand and what it is the advantage of learning the second language. So the first advantage, I'm just going to point a few of them, so there will be more, but I don't want to make this video too long. I just want you to point out a few advantages. So one of them is to better decision making. So psychologists said that human reasoning is shaped by two distinct modes of thought, and one that is systematic, analytical, and cognitive intensive, and another is fast, unconscious, and emotionally charged. So communicating in learned language reduces the role of a potential unrealistic instinct. So in summary, you become better in decision making. The second one is the processing sounds better. So you become better to filter the sounds and understanding one in the other language because you're training to understand two different languages. So that means when we compare with those who speak one single language, the bilingual people pick up better a spoken syllable even when it's buried in a bubble voice. For example, it's better to understand when a kid's speaking or not very distinguishable sound. But your ability to distinguish because you speak two languages is improved much better. So there is a study who shows that they have determined that the nervous system of a bilingual person responds to sound in a way that is distinctive from a person who speaks only one language. Let's see another advantage here. So resistance against dementia and Alzheimer. So learning a new language is one thing that fosters new connections in your brain. So Alzheimer's disease is one thing that kills the connections. So when you foster more connections, you becoming actually resistant of that disease. So you postpone the first symptoms for a few years for comparing you to somebody who speaks only one language. So the Wall Street Journal reports that people who speak a second language may enhance defensive against one set of dementia and delay Alzheimer's disease by an average of 4 years. This is pretty good, isn't it? So another advantage here is that less cognitive problems. So after studying older people who spoke multiple languages, they concluded that the more language someone could speak, the better. People who spoke 3 languages were 3 times less likely to have cognitive problems compared to bilingual people. So here I am in China trying to learn a 3rd language. Maybe I'm gonna get a less cognitive problems, right? So these are other few benefits like bilingual babies get an early edge. So bilingual boosts your brain. So bilingual people so learning another language strengthens the brain area that deals with conflict management. So bilingual learn another language faster and better than monolinguals. Bilingualism appears to boost young children's mental abilities. Learning a new language helps kids better understand psychology and diversity. So you can see there's a lot of advantage of learning a new language. As for myself, I have to tell you that before I learned English, my word was limited to the Portuguese language. But once I learned English, I gained the whole new perspective of many things. So I could be able to make friends all around the world. I could buy books in another language. So it opens doors and professionally doors and personal blessings to my own life. Let me point out a few more things that I wanted to talk to you about. So today now I am in China and I am only here because I learned English. So English is not the China native language, but because they wanted so much to learn English, even though I'm not a native speaker, because I speak good English, I was able to come here as a teacher. So I'm having a very good and nice experience here in China. Let me tell you some of my experiences in here. So, for example, I came here with the purpose of learning Chinese. So I'm trying to learn my 3rd language. So I remember when I was learning English, I have a lot of trouble, a lot of struggling. And sometimes I look back and see well, I'm not learning anything in English. So I feel like giving up. But I stayed in the United States. Of course, I couldn't go back to Brazil, so I stayed there. And all of a sudden, I started picking up a few words, understand one thing here, another thing there. So when I noticed, I was starting to understand the language. So I hope the same thing would be happening here in China. Because I learned one language, I know how it works to learn the language. So I know that even though sometimes I feel that I'm not understanding or not learning anything, it's just a matter of time. So I'm here in China. I see the signs. I heard a lot of people speaking Chinese around me. So one way or the other, I'm learning things, even though I'm not noticing it that much. So here you can see some pictures from me in China. So here is I am a teacher, so I speak in my classes are in English, but I hear Chinese all the time. So I hope to be learning. For example, this picture here, I was in the stadium field, sport court for the university. I don't know what they're saying here. So people can talk around me and I'm not understanding, but I'm starting to pick up a few words. I remember when that was happening with me in the United States when I learned English. So I know one or the other words that I can, when I see somebody speaking, I can understand. So this is how you start to learn a language. Okay, let me show another picture here. So here I am in the volunteer service that I did when in primary school. So it was a lot of fun. So here are some my students, friends that I went out to eat together. So they speak in English with me, but when they're speaking together between themselves, they're speaking Chinese. And I'm there listening. Sometimes I'm not understanding anything. But this is the part, the price that I have to pay to learn a language. So I have been doing this once and I know it works because I'm here speaking English with you. So I might be able to do the same thing in Chinese now. But I have to tell you that sometimes you think of this is not working. But because I have this experience before, I know it works. Let me tell you something about this. Because all my students, not all of them have the same level of English. Some of them have a very low level of English, and they come to me and say, well, this is not worth it. I cannot express myself in English. And because I have been through that experience, I am able to incentivize them that this is the normal process. The only thing you needed to do is to keep pursuing, to keep practicing, not giving up. If you do this, you will learn. But for me, it's easy to say because I cannot give up staying in China right now. So I have to finish my contract. So for me, the best way to learn a language is to move to a country who speaks that language. So here I am in China. Try to learn Chinese, also having a good time and an amazing time that I wouldn't be having if I didn't know how to speak English. So these are the few advantages that I see about learning a new language. It opens up a new world for you. And I'm having such a great time here that I believe that this is one of the skills that improves a person's life so dramatically that you cannot count how many options more do you have because you speak another language. So I'm really happy to be here and I'm happy to share with you this knowledge. So these are the few advantages of learning a new language. It can blesses a people's life in so many ways. So I finish here and hope you can see you the next time.